God of War final thoughts. Unscripted but with talking points. So, I've done it for other games, we're doing it for this now. I want to do it for every game that I beat. I think that would be a good thing. We'll make it a little series. That's fine. So the first thing is, the new direction succeeds. God of War PS4, bringing it back. It's a sequel to God of War 3, takes place 10 years after. And we got a new, it's over-the-shoulder camera. Rather than, the sort of the panned out, like, action sort of thing that it was before. It plays a little bit more like, hesitate to say Dark Souls, but kind of it does. And it works. It works for this franchise. Everything that this game does that is different from the previous series, prequels, works. It all is good. The new direction succeeds. It doesn't look like the RPG system, the mechanics, it's all good within the franchise. Like, yeah, it doesn't break new ground in gaming, but it does within the franchise. The gear leveling, the skill trees and whatnot, it's all new. And I know the previous God of Wars had level ups, but that was just like basic, like flat experiences currency poured into a weapon, get a prerequisite ability. There weren't trees, So, God of War takes established principles that have obviously existed for a long time, but injects it into this game that makes it feel fresh for this series, and it works. Everything is this is a good game. I like this game. It's a really good game. I'm into it. You can't really call, it's my favorite God of War. You can't really call it the best God of War title, but that's only because you can't compare it to past entries. It's too different. You can't compare God of War 1, 2, and 3 to this God of War just in terms of like, oh, this is better than this and this is better. It might as well be different games. It's starring the same skinned characters in the same kind of world, even though it's Norse mythology instead of Greek mythology, which is it's the same, but it's very different, but it's the same, but it's different, but it's the same. They're not the same kind of game, so you can't really do that. What's after that? Okay, 2 sore spots. If I had 2 sore spots, which I do for the game, it's the bosses. They're all reskins. They're all clones. It's Attack of the Clones. And, there's like 8 unique bosses in the game versus 26 actual bosses. Because there's like 18 regular bosses plus the 8 Valkyries and Sigrun, so 9. I like the Valkyrie fights, though. The Valkyrie fights are really cool. They're like within themselves. Even though they're all clones, they all bring something new to the table. When you go fight all the Valkyries, it's almost like you're playing a different game. Like, it's an entirely new story, just fighting all these Valkyries. You develop specific strategies for them, and it's like just this whole other section of boss fights that is really enjoyable within itself. So I don't care that those are clones, because those are all really fun fights. But, like, all the dowdies, the trolls, and like you kill them all the same way too, with like slamming their big stick into their face. That's, the first time that happens, like, oh yeah, that's pretty good. And then it happened again, I was like, oh, you're doing that again? And then it happened 4 more times, and I was like, I'm done with this now. The hardest one of those is probably, the most different one. Like, at least with the Hell, the Gatekeeper, the Bridge Keeper, they gave him new shit a little bit. The other ones they're basically exactly the same. They swing a little different, I guess you could give it that. But the Hell one had these orbs that were floating around, and you had to avoid those. And that was at least something. That made that boss fight a little more unique. Plus, he could teleport around, so he was different enough. But the rest of them were not. And then the ancient spirit ones, the soul eaters. The ones who just, like, they open their chest, they flash their chest at you, just exposing themselves while they shoot shit at you. That's all the same. Sometimes some of them shoot more projectiles. Oh, and some of them have a beam attack. Oh, damn, I hope I can't roll through that. Or block or whatever you're supposed to do. I don't know. I feel like I got hit by the beam attack every single time, so I can't comment on how to avoid it. But, yeah, so those are the sore spots. The bosses that are not clones are pretty good. There's no, like, you know, God of War made a name for itself with all these large-scale encounters. Like climbing colossuses and just, you know, the camera zooms way out, you realize just how tiny you are. God of War 3, the Gaia boss fight. Or, well, not the, well, you know, where, like, you fight while you're on Gaia's back and she's, like, climbing up a mountain. That's, you know, all that stuff, none of that is in this. The only scale-based marvel that's in this game is the World Serpent, which is cool. And also, I guess, the giant that Freya wakes up. Spoilers, by the way, it's Final Thoughts. You knew that. So, yeah, those are cool. There's not a lot of scale-based things. But the unique bosses, like, you know, the Baldur, the cutscene-heavy bosses, those are really cool to watch. They don't serve my purposes when it comes to, like, a ranking or whatever. It's like you fight half of it just watching stuff happen in front of you. But it's still cool. It's a spectacle. It's still a God of War is a spectacle, and I like it. So the bosses are that. All those things I just said. And then the other sore spot is fast travel. Fast travel is not fast. It's slow. It's also restrictive in the beginning for no reason. First, it's like, oh, you know, you can the Brock's Shop fast travel thing is just a hub, like, station, and that's all you get. You go to these other fast travels, all you can do is travel back to Brock's Shop. You can't go to the other ones until way later in the game, and there's no point to that. Is there a point to that I missed? I don't know if there was a point to that. But so that was annoying. But also, I understand, you know, when you do the fast travel, it covers a loading screen. And God of War is a very big, loady game. Like, the kind of game that takes a long time to load, and you get that. You're like, yeah, I see what I'm looking at, and yeah, that probably takes a long time to render for the system to handle and whatever. So you do the fast travel, and then you go through the portal, and then you walk. And just something I discovered. It has nothing to do with how far you walk in the fast travel. You could stand in one place and wait, and then the portal's just going to appear like 10 feet in front of you no matter where you're at. Because it's about time. It's to mask a loading screen. If fast travel was just like, hey, select this, and then there's a blank screen, you'd be waiting for like 35 seconds, and people will be like, this loading screen is way too long. It'll be like Bloodborne in the beginning. And they would have to patch it. So it was just, I don't know, maybe it was a way to avoid a patch. Or maybe that was as low as they could possibly get the loading screens to go, but yeah, it isn't, fast travel is not that fast, and it is kind of annoying to get places. But sometimes it's literally been faster to just hoof it, like not even bother. If you're trying to just go to, like, from one island to the next, and they're kind of nearby, just row there. Kratos is like the master rower, and he gets there super fast. So, yeah. Okay. Atreus. No, I'm saying Atreus. I don't care. Mixed feelings about Atreus because, one, he is a child, which means I hate him. I hate all children. Two, most companion characters are very annoying with the exception of Elizabeth in Bioshock 3 is, like, the only example I can think of that is not. Yeah. He's a solid combat help, though. Atreus is like a good fighter. You know, the enemies kind of, some of them focus on him, which is cool. He can choke them out, hold them down for me to do, like, my charge-up axe swings is something I really like to do. His arrows are 100% necessary in a bunch of situations. They help a lot. The arrows are, you know, you build up the stun meter. Atreus is doing that for you. You do shock damage to like 4 different dudes at the same time. Atreus is doing that for you. He's good in combat. Story-wise, I don't mind him in the beginning because, you know, he's just a kid. He's like trying to get his father's approval, but his father's like never been there and he doesn't think that his father wants him at all. And is like disappointed in him or whatever. Or just, you know, he can't measure up to anything. Absentee, you know, father just like trying to win approval, that kind of relationship. That's fine, that makes sense. And his attitude in regard to that relationship makes sense. He becomes a little cunt when he finds out he's a god. Oh man. He reacts to, first of all, when he first hears about it, I'm like, I swear to God, if they make it so where he's like, oh man, I'm a god, I don't know if I like this, I'm gonna hate that shit. But they didn't. He was like, oh my god, I'm a god? That's awesome. And I was like, yes, it is. That's how you react to hearing that news. If somebody told me I was a god when I was 9 years old, I'd be like, fuck yeah, bitches, let's go burn some shit down. But that's also that leads to the attitude of that I don't like, which is when he became all cocky and annoyed by everything now. He's like, you little people, Brock and Sindri with your fucking brotherhood argument is so annoying. Oh, it pisses me off. And he just like goes off and it came out of nowhere. Because it was, that is all that they would talk about. He's not wrong about that. It was kind of annoying, but he didn't make any mention of being annoyed by that. He's just like, oh my god, can you guys shut up, please? And it's like, oh, you're being such a dick. And then he starts disrespecting his own mother. He's like, what? Mother wasn't a god? What the fuck does she know? And Kratos somehow didn't punch him right in the face right then, just made a passive-aggressive comment afterwards a little later. I was like, you should have smacked him upside the head for that. So, yeah. But then afterwards, they reel him back in. He becomes more like, I'm trying to be a nice kid again. Like, oh, what? That wasn't me. I didn't kill Modi. Even though you did. I thought when they were doing that, it kind of seemed like they were trying to make some kind of thing where it was like, I didn't do that. Where, like, someone was controlling him. Which all that actually, like, maybe has some plot relevance in, like, the DLC. I'm gonna get to that later, but yeah, I'll swing back around there. I think that there might actually have been something going on with that. But, yeah, they bring it back in, and then by the end of the game, like, he's good again. And I still hate kids, but he's a good fighter, and he's fine. I like the dynamic. The dynamic makes sense to me. And look, Kratos' new personality works perfectly, and it makes sense. It's been 10 years since he was this ball of rage built on vengeance. He's old, he's wizened up, he buried his Chaos Blades and said never again. He can change, anybody can change. It's been 10 years. Do you think of how different you were 6 months ago to right now? It's night and day when you put the timing there. When the game was first announced and it was like everybody was making the dad of war jokes, people were like, Kratos having a son and, like, not murdering him? Like, this is impossible. This isn't the Kratos we know. Like, this is bullshit. He would never become this person. Like, how do you struggle with inner feelings of just massive serial killerness that you've been able to overcome, or that you haven't been able to overcome, so you think other people can't? Like, I mean, talk about it when you have experience with it. But having seen and read any form of media, I can tell you that people can change, because they do all the time. So, even though he's, like, he's less just, like, mad and hot-headed and whatnot, but there's the cutscenes times where he's, like, he tries to comfort Atreus, who's, like, sad or whatever, and it shows him, like, moving his hand to touch his shoulder, but then he's like, oh, I can't do it, and then he pulls it back. And then later on, there's times where he does actually do it, so he's making progress. This journey is helping everybody, and it's moving them in a direction that makes sense. Everything about this makes sense. I don't get people who don't say it makes sense, who say it doesn't make sense. It makes sense. Anyway, I'm a big fan of the plot. I'm way into mythology in general. I got invested. I took it seriously. I think it's a great story. A lot of times I'd just be sitting motionless in my boat waiting for Mimir to finish a story because I was listening intently to it. He always has interesting shit to say. The game is good about filling silences with dialogue until you revisit past areas, and Atreus is just like, what now, every 30 seconds. I did that once. I was like, you need to shut the hell up, please. But yeah, the lore is so good. I mean, part of it is just that Norse mythology in general is greatly interesting. Any mythology, really. Well, Greek and Norse, those are the two main ones for me. But yeah, so I was into the story, so all the, like, major plot reveals that had to do with mythology, I was in on them. I liked them. Atreus is half giant, cool. Atreus's mom, Kratos' wife, was a giant, cool. And Kratos didn't even know that shit? Yeah, okay, cool. They were gonna name him Loki, but then they didn't, so like he's Loki now, so even though he's not Loki, he's Loki. Atreus is Loki. And not Loki like Avengers Loki, you know. But, yeah. So, okay. I think we're gonna loop back around to stuff that has to do with that. Freya went from cool witch bae to desperate, irrational, screaming mother. When Freya first appears on the scene as just the Witch of the Woods, it's like, ooh, I found the Bae of God of War. This, you know, you're trying to heal a pig that you shot. It's like, ooh, Bae of Pigs, get it? And so it's like, oh, she's hot and she's like a witch and she does cool things. She's all mystical and shit. And it's just, you know, it's like, oh, this is perfect. Obviously, you don't expect Kratos to go for that because he's on an adventure to bury his wife. He's not being like, ooh, what kind of taint can I get on the way? Because that's how people talk. They're like, ooh, do you have any taint for me? So, yeah. But then by the end, like, it's revealed that Freya is Baldur's mother. The stranger being Baldur, obviously. And then it's just like, Baldur wants to kill her, and she's just like, if it will make you feel better, please destroy my whole life. And then, like, you kill him so he doesn't kill her, and she's like, no! How could you do this to my son? And it's like, he was trying to murder your life. And I'm in Atreus' camp, like, I don't get it. And they're like, if you're not a parent, you won't understand. I don't think a lot of real-life parents are like, yeah, I'd let my son kill me, as long as, you know, it makes his life better. That's fine. A lot of parents are like, I would die for my son. I don't think they mean I would die with a knife in me, stabbed into me from my son. I don't think that's what they're talking about. So, the game does open world extremely well, minus the fast traveling. Like, it's a medium-sized space. It's not just this huge expanse, like open world games are always trying to be like, ooh, look how big our world is, but it's filled with jack shit. This is a good world, a medium-sized world filled with lots of things to do. There's not a lot of open space. Or it is, but it's like filled with things. Like there's not a barrenness. There's not any of that. It unlocks more areas nearby as you go along. The whole world serpent, like, lower in the water, that's such a good way to do things. So that the central area that you travel to is always the closest to whatever's going on still. Having the realms on top of each other also eases travel burdens. That makes it cool. You know, so you don't have to go from, like, one side of the world to the other every time, and you would just never be able to walk that distance. Collectibles or whatever. Like, finding masks, who cares? Finding heirlooms, why are you into that? But chests are really fun to find. I really like the chests. And the rune chests that gave you the hearts that increase your max health and whatnot, those were fun to figure out. All of that was just great. Did anybody else have that chest in right before the Soul Eater boss fight? Where you have to find the runes? I only found and destroy them. I only found 2 of them, and then I went and did the Soul Eater. And the chest had disappeared. I went back to where it was, and it wasn't there anymore, so I couldn't complete it. I was like, what the hell happened here? So I lost out on that, I guess. And that might be a trophy down the drain, which would really suck. It might be a glitch of something. But, yeah, okay. Next thing, fuck Niflheim, and to a lesser extent, Muspelheim. Niflheim is just poison cloud, cursed hourglass, kill you in, like, a minute garbage. I ain't doing it. I did it for a little while. I did it long enough to kill the Valkyrie. I ain't doing it anymore. Beyond that. No, I don't want to do it. I hate that place. Muspelheim, the third trial, the easy trial, is kill 100 enemies. The hard trial after that trial is, I don't even know what it was. Like, don't let Atreus get grabbed, and it's like, when the fuck has that ever happened during our entire adventure? The one time Atreus has ever been grabbed for me is that time where it's part of the cutscene where they're trying to teach you what to do when Atreus gets grabbed. Otherwise, they don't grab him ever. It's not even a mechanic. So that was weird. That 100 enemy thing took a half hour to do. Not because I was dying, but I did it on my first try, but because that's how long the thing takes to do. They send you 4 enemies at a time. None of them are like the ones that run at you and try and jump on your back that you kill in 2 hits. None of them are those. I thought they would at least pad it out with like 20 of those guys. They did not. Like 10 of them are trolls and travelers. So it takes a long time. So that sucks. And then you get to the Valkyrie in Muspelheim, and they're like, oh, did you know that the swords have all respawned? And they have even harder challenges now. Ooh, great, I'm never going to do any of those. But thank you for offering. The power level gear system works, but I would prefer not having it. Plenty of isolated OP enemies one-shot you as you go along, no matter what difficulty you're on. Like early on in the game, you go down a ladder, and there's a dude that's way higher level than you guarding a chest. And he kills you in 1 hit, so I had to just throw my axe at him like 20 times so I could get what was in there. And it's dumb that those people are located in that place. Like Dark Souls does that, but it's different because I don't know why. I don't know why it's different, but I don't like it. But yeah, I'd be taking on like a side quest, and I'd get to where it tells me to go only to find that all the enemies are too strong, so I had to abandon it for later. I don't like that shit at all. I don't like that. The previous God of Wars were not gated to strength. You could go anywhere, but also, could you even revisit locations? Yeah, you could. You had to, because there were chests and whatnot. You had to, like, be able to go back and get them. I don't know. I don't remember. It's been a long time since I played the earlier games. I'm going to sneeze right now, and I'm not even going to edit it out, so give me a sec. Nope, it went away. False alarm. What was it? Yeah. So, I could have done without the gear system, but it's fine. It works. Like, it works. It's a system that works. I would prefer not to have it, maybe, but it works. God of War is a long game, but it fills time well. There's plenty of shit to do, and plenty of shit you'll never do, like the Niflheim and Muspelheim stuff I was talking about. Yeah. And, like, finding all the ravens and hitting them. Good luck with that shit. Yeah. What is it, like 20 to 30 hours? And during none of that time was I ever like, this game's too long, like, when's it gonna end? No, it's very perfectly paced for my mind. Okay, so this is my last thing. This is mostly, I typed this out because I wanted to make sure I get it out. Overall, I greatly enjoyed God of War. I'm excited for the DLC that's definitely coming. Thor is referenced as this evil genocidal asshole throughout the story and name-dropped pretty often, so seeing him at that secret cutscene at Kratos' house gets me pretty excited. By the way, if you haven't seen that, once you beat the game, go to Kratos' house and sleep in the bed. Cutscene arises. It's a pretty cool cutscene. Sets the stage for the DLC. Yeah, so Thor will be a great adversary. Plus, there's Freya to worry about now, too, even though I hate that development. With Atreus revealed to be Loki, who has one of the most heavily argued backstories and origins by scholars of Norse mythology. Like, I looked it up, and there's a bunch of conflicting accounts, and nobody can agree on, like, who Loki really is or who he's related to or where he comes from. But yeah, I'll be interested to see where the story goes and who they decide to relate him to. The theory I read on Wikipedia that I think is most likely to happen in relation to the God of War story is that Loki is a hypostasis of Odin, which, if you don't know what that means, is kind of like how in Christian mythology, Jesus is a hypostasis of God. Like, he's Jesus, but he's also God, you know what I mean? So, like, Loki is Loki, but maybe he's also Odin, like a form of Odin, and they could do something where, like, maybe they take over his body, or as he grows, like, it maybe unlocks some dormant memories or whatnot. So they could totally, like, turn Atreus against Kratos as, like, a hypostasis of Odin. Lots of Norse stuff revolves around gods traveling back and forth through time, so anything's possible, Like, one of the accounts, like, the World Serpent is supposed to be Loki's son in one of the accounts. And it's like, first of all, how'd your wife give birth to that shit? And second, like, time... But they did say something about, like, Ragnarok and how the World Serpent went back in time to before he was even born. Which could be right now, because if he, Loki is a small child, hasn't birthed a World Serpent yet, but the World Serpent is here, so it could very well... Time is very, like, fluctuating in mythology, so they can do pretty much whatever they want with it. But anyway, as you can tell, I'm hyped for more. So that's going to do it for my final thoughts. I want to do a video like this for most every game I finish from now on. I said that at the beginning, but I wrote it here at the end, so I read it again without thinking. So like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.